Welcome to Pound for Pound ATL, arguably the best place to get facts and opinions on your Atlanta Falcons. And absolutely the best place to get your opinions in. The guys are here, the chat is ready, and the conversation starts now.
What's going on, football fans? Welcome back to another rendition of the Pound for Pound ATL Live. Best place to get your opinion heard, read, however you want to look at it. I'm joined today by two of my main dudes. We got Toby and we got Mike in the building. Awesome to have you here with us, guys. We made it through yet another section of the off season. We went from the draft to OTAs and training camps. Now we are done in training camp and we are on to the actual regular season. We finished out the last game. Obviously, we came out a big offer in preseason. We lost to the Browns. But we'll get into that a little deeper as it goes. But it really looked like that this coaching staff, like a trend, doesn't seem to care much about like wins or losses, so to speak, or much of anything else as far as preseason other than maybe evaluating a roster. But we'll get into that. Made our final cuts today. Got down to 53. We signed our full-on practice squad. So, all that being said, what's going on, gentlemen?
Let it rip, Mike. Let it rip, Mike, dude.
Okay. So yeah, I'm a little fired up, but I'll start off on a positive note. And this is a little bit of a different note. Again, we bleed black and red on this channel, but I do want to take a second, give our thoughts out to those in New Orleans in that area suffering from the hurricane. Like I said, we have rivalries when it comes to football, but when it comes to just humanity, we definitely want to send all of our thoughts and prayers to anybody that was affected by it, right? But enough about that. To your point, we had cuts this week, and we learned a lot about this team this week. It's crazy to me. It's a bit surreal because I remember all of us doing our live draft episode. I remember these guys' lives kind of being, basically changing for the better in front of us. We talked about a Frank Darby and a Kumbo, Okundeji, so many guys, right? And to see a lot of these guys flourish and the majority of these guys actually make the team, I think is a good sign, right? Now, again, we got some question marks today. We got a lot to talk about today. Definitely got some question marks at the cornerback position still. Definitely left guard position. We'll touch on all of that. But again, man, it's another great week to be able to talk with you guys, and I couldn't be more excited. Toby D.
Hey, man, I'm not even going to waste time. I just want to jump into it, guys. I think we got to start off with Josh Andrews. Y'all know that I've been a guy behind Josh Andrews, believing he could start for the Atlanta Falcons since I can remember talking about when he got on this team that I believe he can win a spot. And he was this close, and he waits until less than 2 weeks of the game to start September 12th and go out with a broken hand. So what's you guys' thoughts on that situation at the left guard?
All right, let's roll it all the way back, right? We signed Josh Andrews, and I have never heard his name, didn't know nothing about him. I admit to everybody that I don't necessarily keep up with all the offensive linemen of the NFL, right? So in some of like the early circles I was running with, or being involved in, I heard, Josh Andrews is, trash and can't play and all this other stuff. And then I finally got around to like doing a video that I knew I was going to do, which was looking at the blocking scheme. Well, when you're looking at the blocking scheme, you got to look at the O-lineman, right? So I knew that was coming for me. So when that finally came around, I was like, all right, it's time to like dig in, time to figure out like really what we got. And I started looking at Josh Andrews thinking, this guy ain't played enough for anybody to say he's trash. Like at that point, he's played like one full game. like as far as snaps wise. He didn't even play a season worth of snaps for the Jets last year. So how are you going to sit here and tell me that a guy who has barely played is trash without giving him the opportunity, right? So at that point in time, I changed my tune and basically got on board with you, Toby. I was like, all right, you know what? Fine. This guy could, win a spot, and maybe he can shock us all, We all wanted to run Wes Schweitzer out of town, but I bet you money you'd take him back right now if you could, right? So who knows, right? We go into, he's starting to, basically win that left guard position. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever, let's go. And we go into that Tennessee game, and I was there. I'll bring that up, not to rub it in, but just to for the context. And in the stands, watching him getting manhandled by rookie defensive linemen that probably aren't even going to crack Tennessee's roster really had some concerns, man. I'm not even going to lie. Straight up and down, I was like, oh, this ain't good. This ain't good that he's getting walked back into McCarron's lap by Rashad Weaver, a fourth or fifth round pick out of Pitt, and so I was like, all right, overreaction, first game, whatever. Let's see what happens in Miami. Now we've gotten real live game speed underneath our belt, right? Get down to Miami, and all you're hearing from him is he's cramping. He's cramping down in Miami. I'm like, all right, cool. It's humid as all get out. I ain't a football player. I deal with cramps, at night myself. Cramps suck. So I'll even put that aside. Get to the game, and he's playing better. I'll give him that, right? He was playing better, and I was like, all right, cool. Maybe we're turning the corner. Come back up in here into Atlanta, same deal. Dealing with cramps again. Now, hold on now. You've been in Georgia all summer now. You shouldn't we shouldn't be cramping here, right? So that starts to worry me a little bit. And then you get into the game, and he doesn't look much better. Now, McGarry comes back, so you get Mayfield in the mix. And at left guard, Mayfield doesn't look all that great right now. Somebody put it real good today on a space chat I was in. Mayfield looks like a tackle who's trying to play guard. It's a lot of punching. Tackles aren't used to, in a sense, staying locked in and engaged. It's that punching, it's moving, it's a different type of engagement than being in a phone booth, right? Next to two other guys, and you're basically just having a lock on, right? So anyway, and then you get the news that he broke his hand, that Josh Andrews broke his hand in Tuesday's practice. And you're like, holy crap, man. Now, my biggest concern for this team going into the offseason is, I dare to say, even bigger than what it was. Because now I'm looking at the real potential of Jalen Mayfield starting as, your left guard against Fletcher Cox of Philadelphia. You know what I'm saying? That's not ideal at all. And the fact that we ain't made a move yet, and you still got there's something that you brought up, Mike, and we'll get into as we continue on. There's a David DeCastro still sitting out there. There's a Nick Eaton still sitting out there. There's an Austin Ritter who didn't give up any sacks at all for Kansas City last year, still sitting out on the wire, or just sitting on the couch. So, that I know there are concerns about cornerback, and again, these are all the things that we're going to get into today. This is our opening salvo. This is what we're setting up. We're letting chat know what our initial thoughts are, so that they can get their questions rolling, right? But right now, my number one concern is this O-line. Because if you can't keep MR2 up, I don't care
Right.
how good Kyle Pitts looked.
So, you know what? Every point that you guys have made, I agree with, right? But I got to caution myself because I was getting fired up just listening to your comments, right? Because, you actually took a couple steps away from, which is good because you actually went through every game that Josh Andrews played, which I love. You went through every part of Josh Andrews' progression, which I like even more. But it reinforces to me that it is a red flag, and not just a red flag. I mean like a glowing red flag, the left guard position right now. It is absolutely 100% in the worst position it's been in the last 5 years, and it's been pretty bad. This is where, guys, the rubber meets the road. Are we really rebuilding, or are we really trying to compete this year? Because I will go as far as to say this, JR. If we do not make a Ritter and Eaton, a David DeCastro type move, what we're saying is, what we saw to Jalen Mayfield's up and down performance is good enough. And Arthur Smith does not strike me as a coach that settles for good enough. If he does, mark it down, write it here. This is one of the first metrics of failure that we're going to judge Arthur Smith on. Because you know what, guys? Listen, Pound for Pound family, y'all have listened to us for about the past 8 to 9 months, just sing the praises of the accountability, the toughness, the foresight of Terry Fontenot, the vision, the voodoo magic, all of that type of stuff. Because remember, let's not forget back in, I would say, February, March, some of the just 1-year deals we were able to squeak in. They always come in like the middle of the night, right? And that's the one thing I know about this team. This is not going to be a team that's going to tell you a lot about what their plan is. But if I really had to put myself in Arthur Smith's shoes, either he's got this grant. See, you know what? Either Arthur Smith is a really innovative guy, or he's a guy who's not going to be here long.
Yeah,
let's just put it out. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because when you go all or nothing, right? When you kind of got that gambler mentality where it's like, I'm not touching my guys because they showed me enough of Miami on a couple practices that I don't need to put them out there in real game scenarios, which, okay, we'll trust. But to put continual goose eggs up, it just says a lot about how this team is being run, right? So my thing is this. If we don't make a move for a veteran and give that veteran time to go into the system, and don't get me wrong, Jalen Mayfield, hey, and I'll say it again, Toby, I say it again. If we put Jalen Mayfield out there, we might just have to watch him take his lumps. But if we watch him take his lumps, I'm not rushing to get to Falcons games. I'm going to come in the second, third quarter and just sit down and watch my guys because I'll know how serious we are with the season. Because don't get me wrong, Jalen Mayfield sounded like a surefire fit at guard just a couple of weeks ago. But what we've seen right now, he's just not ready. Fletcher Cox and Jalen Mayfield, the very first week, if I'm Matt Ryan, I wouldn't get any sleep from now until the first game.
We got a $5 tip early on from Redbird Eagle, so I'm gonna go ahead and get into that. I'm gonna at least answer his questions. He says, JR, will Cordell pull a Falk/Roger Craig and get 1,000 yards rushing / receiving? Fowler in the 10 sacks, in the teens in sacks. I guess I'd be more apt to put Cordell closer to 1,000 than I would Dante closer to the teens in sacks. Because you're talking about 13 sacks. That's pretty high. That's a good year out of anybody, right? So we'll see how that goes. But looking at Cordell's production throughout, he's a special teams guy who I'm going to be interested to see how he actually gets put in the season. Because he's one of my big question marks, as in what are we doing here? Well, again, we're gonna circle back around to that here in a little bit, but I don't want to stray too far off of where we are. But as it is our tradition, you decide to put your hard-earned money in our pockets, we're going to respect you and read that comment. So anyway, but kind of circling back to what you were talking about, all we've heard all offseason is, we respect these guys. We're in win now mode. We respect these guys too much to rebuild, and the first move you saw was, the first like major move really was the, trading away of number 11. Now, I think that was out of the hands of everybody. Like, in a sense,
Right.
like you had that piece come out in The Athletic from like some pretty candid answers from Arthur Blank. So I think that situation was, I think when he shut it down last season, with about 4 or 5 games left, whatever it was, 6 games maybe, I think he'd made that decision then, right? So, and it sounded like, Arthur Smith knew it coming in and took the job anyway,
Yep.
Kind of deal. So, like, when you make that move, whether you're doing it for like the best interest of the player, team, however you want to spend it, I don't care. That does send a signal like, okay, we're not necessarily trying to appease Jones anymore. So now we're going to move in a different direction, right? Okay, so now you go into, you restructure Matt Ryan to free up some cap space, but there's other moves that you didn't make, right? Like you didn't extend, or however you want to put it, you didn't do anything with Grady Jarrett. Like, you could have created money there. You could have created money by extending Calvin Ridley. Now, this could easily be a situation of we want to see what we got before we go to that financial table, And it could even be with the players, that they want to see what they got. You got new TV money coming. So, the players may not even be really all wanting to get locked in just yet. You might want to.
Right.
So there's a lot of circumstances, but all I'm trying to get at is you didn't do everything you could to free up as much money as possible. So you then have to make moves like a Daron Harmon, Eric Harris, Josh Andrews, those type of budget maneuvers, right? So you're still making those budget maneuvers and still trying to sell the fan base on win now. The longer this offseason has drawn on, the less I am inclined to think that they actually believe that they can win now. Now, do I think they believe they can win soon? As in, like, really compete next year? That's how I'm kind of starting to lean. Like, you almost have like a year of evaluation, in front of us, evaluating everything. Evaluating how these players respond to your coaching, top to bottom, evaluating it all, right? So it'll be interesting. I'm starting to depending on what they do the next 2 weeks at this O-line, that's really going to tell me how they really see it. Because if you're willing to roll into Philly week 1 with essentially 2 rookies, and as much as I like Hennessy, he's only started 3 games for us. And that was the last 3 games of the season, right? So you might as well consider him a rookie still. So if you're looking at starting a rookie center and a rookie left guard, then you're willing to take the lumps that comes with.
Yeah. I'll say this much. Until I see how he schemes things, Arthur Smith and that staff that he is, I'm going to wait them 5 weeks out that I tweeted about. I need to see that in the regular season. And I don't think it's more so them rebuilding. That's their mindset. They are really confident in the coaching staff. He brags about his coaching staff every chance he gets. And they seem to be real high on the fact that they feel like they really have learned a lot about these players and what they can do with them. And until it's shown that they can't get out of them what they're feeling like they believe they can get from their scheming and stuff like that, because we haven't schemed or anything. And you see Arthur Smith has been very heavily against scheming in preseason. And he always brings that up, and even scheming this week. they don't even want to think about scheming this week for Philadelphia. Now, they'll do a few things from a technical standpoint to get ready for Philadelphia, clean up some techniques, situations and game situations and penalties and all of that stuff that they dealt with in the preseason, but they're not really seriously game planning. So I want to see come September 12th, what it is they are actually feeling good about, because even Cordell Patterson, who was asked from D-Led today about what does he think about the offense, what did Cordell Patterson say? You got to wait to September 12th. So they feel like even Garrett, Jared Grady, Jared, and all of them guys feel like they have something they're ready to unveil. But hey, guess what? I listened to the Eagles today, and they feel like they got something to unveil. So somebody's unveiling is going to work, and somebody, when they unwrap theirs, ain't going to work. They're going to have to wrap it back up and return it back to the store.
Okay.
So
I agree. And hold on. And actually, to that point, let me one more thought on that. I think one thing too, though, because we are hard on the left guard position, because today the left guard position is a hard position to be on, right? But we do have some hope there, right? Like I won't sit here and say that this team is in full rebuild for this simple reason. One thing that benefits Matt Ryan right now, potentially with left guard troubles, with offensive line troubles, is 2 elite tight ends. That is going to serve him really well, especially tight ends that go in motion, right? Because it's not as much, the traditional offense we've seen where we really look predictable, because we're going to go to Julio probably within the first 5 or 6 plays. We're going to Julio. We're going to try to get it to him. If it doesn't work to him, we're going to try to see what Ridley's doing. Like, it's kind of cliche where we go now. I just think the one thing that, is consistent that we got to hold on at the left guard. But one thing I will say is what they do with Hayden Hurst and Kyle Pitts, I think early will dictate, I think, some really, I think they can create more mismatches with what we have now. Because again, Matt Ryan is not having to chunk the ball down the field. And again, Matt Ryan is going to be 1, 2, 3, get the ball out of there. We just know that. The offensive line is not creating many pockets for him. So the short game will be important against the Eagles to set up maybe a Zacchaeus, a couple deep plays that way. But we're not really set up to throw the ball to Zacchaeus more than 4 or 5 times a game. We're still set up to try to put Mike Davis in position. Now, what this does bode well, we talked about Cordell Patterson. I do see more getting the ball to him in space, more getting him the ball on screens, just things to put our players in space, because I don't really see us getting a lot of ground and pound with this offensive line. I don't see Jalen Mayfield pushing defensive linemen back and us being able to dominate at the point of attack. So I think we're going to have to find creative ways to,
it's going to be a lot on the coaching. It's going to be a lot on the coaching. It's going to be a lot on scheming, and which is fine. That was the reason why I wanted Arthur Smith here. And as a reason why I have gotten excited over the offseason about a Dean Pease. Okay? So, I mean, straight up and down have said, like, from word go, coaching is going to be this first year the biggest, like, whether this team makes a big jump or not, right? So that was our opening salvo, as we like to say. So let's jump into chat. We're going to start. Oh, man, it's popping. We're going to start with a $10 tip from good old Fred Butts, who wanted to ask us a question.
Right.
He says, Falcons are going to surprise people, and y'all still expect deep shots under Arthur. I do expect deep shots. I mean, you saw it in preseason with Franks trying to hit Zacchaeus in that game. And it like, that was a deep shot. That was, 30-plus yards downfield. And it almost worked. Yeah. So, yes, I still expect timely deep shots. Like, you got to have that in your arsenal. You can't just even with the dink and dunk of Brady and the Peyton Manning era, they still had deep shots. Like, whether they had a deep shot guy, you have to work it in there, and you got to do it to keep defenses from cheating up on you. So, let's go ahead and jump on into chat. Joseph Thornton and Joe Houston both said, "What's up? What's going on, gentlemen?" Woon Carter's up in here. What's going on, Woon? He says, "Rise up, pound for pound family. Do you guys think the O-line will gel? And also, do you guys think Matt Ryan will get over the hump with this new staff?" That's that was an early on, like right when we started. That was 20-something minutes ago. And yes, like that's what's going to be these first few weeks, right? Redbird did say what's up before he tipped us. So what's up, Redbird? Same thing with Tony Wright.
Redbird.
Grouples, gave us the respect. Respect to you too, sir. Same thing with Willie White. What's good, Willie? Tony Wright says some fans just don't know the game of football, JR. They think they do, but they really don't. Look, man, I was one of those fans for quite a while, okay? I was one of those fans until I made a concerted effort to sit down and actually try to learn this stuff. And I still, will mess up and make mistakes. But, yes, there are some fans that will just look at the top level, like a 30,000-foot view, and that's all they're concerned about, right? So, and you can easily tell those fans pretty quickly. You can hear them make one or two statements and you go, okay, I know who I'm dealing with. We're not going to go real deep. Yeah, Matt Ryan sucks. Thank you, and we'll move on. Because we ain't going to get into the details of it, right? Our good buddy Nick Bangaloo says the offense and defensive schemes were vanilla on purpose to see who is good and bad. Yeah, I get that. I really do. You saw a tiny bit of scheme with Kyle Pitts, okay, and I detailed that, that play on Twitter where you had, you were in 12 personnel. You had Hurst and Pitts on the field. You had a 2 tight end stack set up as the, right side or, the right side of the formation, right, which is the top of the screen by, when you're looking at it. They sent Juwan Green into motion. When he got into motion about halfway through is when they snapped the ball. The entire offensive line went to the to the left. Hurst squirts straight up, and Franks and Pitts rolled to the right. That was a good play design. That was a really good play design, and for the first time in his 3 preseason games, the threat of Franks running actually worked because the defender had to make a choice. This is what you want to do in an offensive scheme is you want to put defenders in a compromising situation. You want to make them make a choice. Right. That defender had to choose Kyle Pitts or Felipe Franks. 9 times out of 10, they're going to choose the quarterback all day long because they want to hit the quarterback.
You know what? I'm sorry. You know what? ADD moment, though. So just one more thing. We on one thing. Shout out to Quadre Olison. Matter of fact, somebody retweet him because he liked our tweet. JR, you were the one who talked him up earlier in the year. Shout out to Quadre Olison doing what it takes to win a very crowded running back room, right? That was a lot of smoke there. We got Javian Hawkins, who we were I just knew for sure he was the next Darren Sproles.
I just thought he was a lot because he had that speed element.
And Huntley has got so much promise and potential. But whatever Oliver showed, and that's another thing too, I think having a defined backfield will save us a lot of weeks, right? Like I said, here's the thing. This offensive line conversation becomes a non-starter over the next 3 days. Because one thing I do know is we have the cap space, and we do have a general manager who, his words, right? We're going to make Terry Fontenot start eating his words. He said it's disrespectful to this team to say that we're rebuilding, right? So it would be disrespectful for you, Terry Fontenot, if you're watching this podcast, to not put a left guard in place to keep Matt Ryan upright. Because if so, we could have bought into the whole Justin Fields, Trey Lance.
Whatever you wanted.
Exactly. So that's part of the reason why we're having to justify that. So I think once we get that in, again, that is next week when we talk, it may not be an issue. But right now, that's just something we gotta pay attention to. So
this to me comes down to, once again, Arthur Smith. And I think it's going to be if Arthur Smith feels like that he needs something extra over there other than what he has and already has pre-schemed for, then he will call for it. Arthur is betting on his coaching staff. Now, and for the first time, we actually have a coach that actually is beneficial to us, where the coach is now becoming the star of the team and not the team itself. And this really benefits us because it takes a lot of pressure off the team to become the star and puts it all on the shoulders of the coach. And he seems like he is willing and capable and ready to take that weight on his shoulder of being the star of the team.
Yeah, but it's a risky game, though, Toby. I guess.
I'll put it to you like this. the first few years of Boy Wonder Shanahan out in the 49ers didn't look all that great either. So, like, again, as the offseason has worn on, I'm, starting to, like, temper my earlier expectations. And it could be just a flat-out byproduct of watching – look, because let's be real here, and let's go ahead and talk about – well, I'm going to get back in the chat, but something I want y'all to ponder on. It really seems like a new trend is popping up with these younger coaches, that these newer coaches. Yeah. And you also take into account that, this is the first season that they're navigating a 3-game preseason versus a 4-game preseason. And it seems like a lot of these younger coaches are using preseason to just evaluate their deeper roster. And because Smith wasn't the only one. A lot of starters didn't play this offseason. Belichick, as a matter of fact, was one of the few coaches that actually played a lot of his starters in every game. So, but, he had to basically rebuild his roster. So he was also trying to figure out what he had. Anyway, but we'll get back into that. That's something I want y'all to think on and percolate on. Ant One Wartime TV says, "What's up? What's going on, bud? Glad you're here." King of Jill says, "Do you guys believe Calvin Ridley is a true number 1 receiver?" Yes, I do. Like, straight up, not even trying to be like sarcastic or nothing. No, I believe he's the number 1 wide receiver in this league. I'm sorry. He's not in the same vein as Julio Jones, but many people aren't. So, yeah.
But, see, that's the thing, though. It's like, everybody's metric of what a receiver is, what makes a receiver great is different, right? The biggest thing, when the ball comes your way, do you catch passes, right? How you do it, how pretty you look, doesn't really matter, right? But let me tell you something about Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is probably one of the best route runners in the entire NFL. And when you become the best in the NFL, that puts you in the number 1 shot. That's at anything. Because everybody's good, right? But to be one of the best, and he said something the other week that stuck out to me. He would say running routes is a science. So what he's doing is cracking the code of how to get open, right? That's a guy that we don't really need to talk about him much. You know how we didn't talk about Julio a lot until it was time to talk about Julio? Calvin really is not a guy that you really want to talk about much because he knows what it takes. And, here's a caveat too. Let me tell you the most risky thing about our left guard situation. Calvin Ridley is in a contract year. And it would be in the best interest of this organization to sign a guy like that and keep him in the fold to continue to build around, because I think that he does have a chance to continue to be the future. So I think this is almost a dual dress rehearsal as well, because Calvin really does have the option. He might want to go take the money elsewhere. So I'm really a new true number 1 receiver. Absolutely not.
Let me tell y'all something, though. Calvin Ridley's going to need number 8 to step up and be the star that we drafted him to be. Because I'm going to tell you something. If Kyle Pitts does not become that person we need him to be, we won't be talking about Calvin Ridley either, because Calvin Ridley ain't going to be able to get open every play. He's got to have another star on that team that is going to be able to shoulder some of the load and draw some attention. And look, much respect to Hayden Hurst and Russell Gage. Much respect to them. But ain't nobody scared of them at the end of the night. Not right now, they're not. Ain't no defensive coordinator losing no sleep at the end of the night. But I can tell you right now, it's coordinators losing pre-sleep over Kyle Pitts. I heard that with the Eagles. They already talking about this guy over there. So they are very nervous and wondering how Arthur Smith is going to use this guy. But this guy has to be able to live up to all the potential that everybody is putting on his shoulders to live up to in order for Calvin Ridley to really have that year that he needs to have.
Yeah. No, that's another.
Because who else on the offense? Who else on that offense gonna give it to him?
But see, that's what I think. I think the ability. So okay. So let me say it another way. Watching this Falcons team for a long time, I would say seldom have we had 2 dominant receivers on the same field since Roddy White and Julio Jones. Back when Julio was kind of like second, third year in the league, and then you had Roddy White kind of when he was playing his best. That's 2 dominant guys to look out for. I do think that the reason why the Eagles defensive coordinators are losing sleep is that I'll just be honest with you. One play is probably, everybody is Kyle Pitts crazy right now. One play, 28 yards, so on and so forth. The problem is this, man. I'll be honest with you. I've watched SEC football since I was a kid, right? The things that Kyle Pitts has done from a domination standpoint, I mean, sheer dominance. And I mean, having played the game of football, you don't seldom run against tight ends that, put fear in you. Let me ask y'all a question. For as long as y'all been following this team, when has another defensive coordinator ever said that they could, or ponder, or we pontificate that a defensive coordinator could sleep over a rookie?
Oh yeah, no. I think he definitely has like all the potential in the world to be, special. Yeah. But now it's like it's time to put it's rubber meets the road, right? Yeah. So
right.
All right, we're gonna keep moving on. Ghost Pepper says, for what it's worth, guard Ryan Nazul is on the practice squad. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the I don't know if that makes me feel any better. I mean, it's not like he showed well in the preseason either.
But see, I'm a little bit, but this is the nerd side of Mike Dub just like percolating right now, because Ryan Nuzil was actually one guy that I texted Jimbo Slice during the game, and I said, where the hell is this guy even from, right? What I like about a guy like Ryan Nuzil is he reminds me of what I enjoy about college football. He comes from like Appalachian State, right? And if you know a lot about those smaller schools, especially, like Georgia Southern, Louisiana Lafayette, App State, specifically App State, those are guys, they just tough, rugged. He is a guy that actually, listen, the Tennessee Titans game was abysmal, but I kept asking myself, who is this number 69 guy that I've never seen his name? I've never seen. So I went and researched him a little bit. And I think, again, practice squad, didn't know that we were going to talk about Ryan Nuzil this much. But again, he's not ready for week 1. But I am impressed. He was one of the guys on the practice squad.
Yeah, I mean, you speak App State, and somebody else brings it up in the comments that we'll get to. We claimed one person on the waivers. We got Cody Gossett from the Cleveland Browns. And, the one interception, the Cobe Jones interception, apparently, according to the Twitterverse, I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it, but according to the Twitterverse, like that pressure that caused that interception was given up by Cody Gossett. Now, that could just be one bad play. I've heard that he's a decent, guard, but I mean, they thought enough of him to claim him, and Cleveland has, a good offensive line. So
they got film on this guy. He just,
I got a little tired bit on
what you got,
Kobe.
Bro?
We talking about App State.
Uh-huh.
Guess what? He coached him
exactly
at App State.
That was something that I was going to bring up.
Okay.
And that App State connection with Dwayne Ledford is probably why Nuzil is on the practice squad as well. He may not have coached him, but he has inside information, from connections there.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how this left guard stuff plays out. Unless they bring somebody in, we're going to be taking lumps somewhere. And we just hope that you just hope that the coaching staff knows it, sees it, and schemes for it, right? So that's all we can bet on right now.
Well, hold on. Before we put it to bed, last little thing. I'm not advocating for Jalen Mayfield. I'm not saying what Jalen Mayfield is going to do. All I'm saying is the last 2 games, Jalen Mayfield was one of the highest rated guards in the last 2 preseason games as well. Not that he's had his moments, but he ability at times to dominate, right?
So we'll see if he can, if he can grow and learn. That's what we have to see, right?
That's what we drafted him for too, though. We didn't draft him to be like, crap, another 5 years of the same thing, right? So we'll give him a week, but we'll be watching him, and we'll probably have to start the left guard. Who is our left guard this week?
And it may be.
Conversation.
We'll see how it goes.
Then good players in college football over the next couple weeks.
Corey Harris says, if the running game is the focus, the line seems to be the most critical piece and the highest priority over everything. Like you can scheme a run game, and you can, like, a lot of times if you just make it a priority, like that can end up having good effects. So we'll see how all that transpires. Thogio says, Thiago. Anyway, he says, what's up? What's going on, bud? Glad you're here. Ghost Pepper was talking about gossip. We just brought that up. 92 Dirty Bird says, I pray that we have a coach that can adjust because losing leads is heartbreaking. Right. Like a lot of this is going to be, especially from this section of the YouTube creator world. Like, we have put a lot of our basket or a lot of our eggs in the coaching basket, right? And we feel like that's what has been letting us down the last few years. So we're going to see, right? Theo says, just got here. Don't know if you guys already talked about left guard. We have been talking about it. Let's see. He's talking about a guy, Durval something Nito, number 69, cut from the Dolphins, looks way better than our left guard. I really think he could be a great fit. And this is like somebody said it. This is why you brought in Fontenot. Like, is you know, that player personnel background that he had. Like, you're going to be leaning on that, right? Let's see. Somebody says Falcons signed former Bucks DN Quentin Ball to the practice squad and added Dante Foreman, Caleb Huntley, which I thought was kind of a surprise cut, as much run as he got. Like, I don't know if I consider it a surprise when an undrafted free agent gets cut, but he was getting a lot of run in preseason action. So I kind of felt like he was like fighting for a roster spot. So to see him get cut was interesting, but he was the first guy that was announced to be on the practice squad. So I was good. I was glad to see that he's still like in the organization. Tony Wright says, I have a question for Mike. With the Bears releasing Trufant and the fact that he's owed $3.5 million from Detroit from last year, should we bring him back on a cheap deal to help out the corners? Would you entertain, like, so now I'm kind of putting a spin on it. Would you entertain bringing back Desmond Trufant on a cheap deal? Because I wouldn't myself.
Okay, so no, because I wanted to actually get thought about it. Because my first thought was no. I'm sure, my thing about it is, I think, I look at a guy like that and I realize that, I'll be honest with you, like, I'm going to answer it straight up. I was actually in Tampa the game that Desmond Trufant hurt his bicep. The year we were going to the Super Bowl, he hurt his bicep and he was out for the year, right? I thought he was playing some of the best football of his career. Honestly, he never came back even then as the same player, right? I'm always concerned about a guy. Familiarity aside, because he's had some moments when he was in the Atlanta Falcons, right? But I think for him to go to a Lions organization that's like, if you're a good player,
right,
we're going to keep you, right?
Desperate, in a sense.
I think, going to these different teams and being at the bottom of the barrel, we need a guy that can come in and deliver immediate value. And again, now, while we're talking about it, though, great question. My question is to you guys. This is more to you guys fans. What corner would you guys like to see? Because, here's another caveat. We hadn't touched on it yet. Let's segue into this guy. Kendall Sheffield made the team, but Kendall Sheffield is on the IR. So to me, it's like that's a role that would have went to somebody that needs to come in and play. Are there any guys out there? We got a little bit of cap space. Are there any guys out there that you guys would like to see? I'm not really sure Desmond Trufant comes in and takes us over the top. We really need somebody to be able to guard everything that the Bucks got. If you're a corner and you can cover, we need you. Because and again, that's a shout out to Fabian Moreau as well. Another guy on a one-year deal who made the team. That's another thing that we haven't really touched on as well, too. Not to jump all over the place, but most of those guys that are on one-year deals, most of them made the team. If you notice, right? Like most of them, Fabian Moreau, we took a chance on them. They look like they're playing. This is our depth right now, right? So, no. To answer your question about Desmond Trufant, no.
Toby?
But I wouldn't want to right there.
Toby, your thoughts on
that's my other.
Trufant?
HE double hockey stick.
Okay.
We need all the help. I looked at that secondary. I don't know if y'all was looking at that secondary that I was looking at. But that secondary didn't look good, which is one of the reasons why Chris Williamson got cut, and brought back to the practice squad ultimately. All right. Now, shout out to TJ Green because wasn't he converted over to
he actually looked pretty good.
And and he looked good and won a position. And that's what took Chris Williamson out, because Chris Williamson gave up touchdowns in every preseason game, just in case y'all
I
didn't
knew.
know. But anyway, yes, I would take a flyer on Desmond Trufant and bring him in here and see what he can do. Now, once again, it all goes back to Arthur Smith. If he believes that their scheming is going to really help these players shine, and they don't make a lot of moves coming up this weekend, because I don't know about y'all, but I'm expecting some moves to be made come Friday, Saturday, and Sunday while these players are not playing. They off all weekend.
So that's a good point. That's a great point. And I'm gonna tell you this though. So that leads me to this though. We make some moves this weekend, and to be honest with you, I was probably in my mind Desmond Trufant. I got this viewpoint of him, and when people ask me of it, that viewpoint comes out. But honestly, looking at what we already have, because if you think about it like this, Fabian Moreau has shown me enough, I'll be honest, to feel like, okay, outside of AJ Terrell, we're okay over there, right? But my question is, it's like, we got a Desmond Trufant. Where do you play this guy? Do you play him in the slot over Isaiah Oliver, who I felt like has gotten progressively better? True enough, knock on wood, no regular season games have been played. He does not have to guard anybody on a deep route. But as a nickelback, as a guy that's just in the box, kind of as a minimum enforcer, he didn't look horrible,
he had a good play on,
I
think it was Hooper.
I think during the practice, open practice, he was one guy it just seems like he's bought in, he's heard the noise, and he's just out to play football. He's not trying to be the second round pick that's trying to uphold his status. He's just a guy that's trying to not get cut. Mm-hmm. And I think he's so like that. And I think that honestly, let me knock on wood. Reginald Oliver, if you're out here, I'm knocking on the ascent of Isaiah Oliver is actually one of the few bright spots in our secondary right now, because I do think that will carry over. And I think that as long as we're not putting him in situations where he's got to play man, he's got to go on an island, anything like that, and he's playing box with Dean Pease at the helm, it goes back to coaching, because again, he's a guy that's bought into Dean Pease coaching. We're in good shape. I mean, I'm almost a guy that whoever Dean Pease brings in, he got to be able to blitz anyway.
Right. Like Tony brings up, Ghost Pepper brings up a good point. He says Trufant hasn't even played a full season since 2018. And he wasn't good enough to stick in the terrible Lions defense that ranked 32nd in the league. So, I mean, I get the hesitancy for sure. But outside of like, we haven't heard a lot about Fabian Monroe, and a lot of times when you don't hear a name, that's almost as good as hearing it. That means they're doing their job, right? So, but the areas of concern I have right now, my number one area of concern is the O-line. My second area of concern is like it's somewhere in between cornerback and wide receiver. Like, do I think Gage and Ridley are going to be good? Yes, I feel like they're going to be just fine. Do I think the drop-off past Gage is pretty steep? Yeah, because about the only thing that we have seen Zacchaeus be able to really do is take the top off.
Just run it deep.
Like Christian Blake, I know I wish Jimmy was here because that's his boy, but Christian Blake can't consistently, make the play. And like, I'm surprised in a lot of ways that, maybe not surprised, but I was glad to see Darby make the roster. Even though it seemed like he wasn't necessarily showing a ton on special teams. But the last couple games, he was like in Miami and then again in Cleveland, he was making some good contested catches. He was one of the more consistent receivers. Fred Butston tipped us another $5. Thank you very much, Fred. He says, I think Pitts will have 10 touchdowns. It took 5 guys to bring him down. I mean, I think that's part of what they're counting on. Like, I think they're okay with wide receiver depth because of, Pitts and Hurst, so we'll see how all that transpires. All right, let's keep rolling. Mr. Lee says, we will see in the Eagles matchup, I hope we see balance on offense bleeding the clock in the NFL. Again, that goes back to scheme. I think Arthur believes in his scheme, as he should, as did, Shanahan believed in his scheme, as in Cutter believed in his, unfortunately. But I think what you're going to see is a balanced offense, because that seems like that's what, Arthur Smith is truly striving for. Let's keep right on rocking. True fun. Okay. Vlad says, I really hope Mayfield can lock down that left guard. Look, man, same thing with Isaiah Oliver. He's another, like, Mayfield is another guy I am willing and hoping to be wrong about, right? I'd much rather hear in about 2-3 weeks be talking about, dude, Mayfield looked great, and Oliver is. I'd much rather have those conversations. So yes, I may seem a little less optimistic than usual, but believe you me, I'm rooting hard for these guys. Keep on keeping on. Roast Stackton says, man, this O-line is getting me worried. We ain't trying to have y'all worried, but like I said, it's my biggest concern.
We just got to keep it up. Yeah, it's not a
no, he says, we don't know how Hennessy and McGarry is still suspect. I'll say this, though. Against that Cleveland, the Cleveland defensive line, obviously Myles Garrett, I don't believe, was out there. He wasn't playing. But Hennessy looked good getting to the second level, which is what you want in the zone blocking. And McGarry, by all accounts and the few snaps that we've seen him, he's looking solid. He's back to 100%. So we got to hope there, right?
Right.
Damian Simmons says, why do y'all think okay, hold on. Why do y'all think would be the better, who do we think would be the better free safety for the Falcons, Deron Harmon or Eric Harris? Because they got Harmon at strong safety. All right, what I need you to do, Damon, is remove the labels of strong safety and free safety. If there's one thing I can speak to almost 100% fact in a DMP system, is you can just label them safeties. Because they are interchangeable, and they're going to be interchangeable. Even if they decide to go into a big dime package and bring Richie Grant out on the field, or even Jalen Hawkins out on the field, they're going to put them where they think they're going to succeed. Like you heard that in Dean Pease's press conference, talking about having corners like learn the concept of safeties and vice versa, so that they know and understand what they're dealing with back there. They talk about more teaching a concept than teaching scheme and position.
So let me ask y'all a question, because it hadn't been brought up one time, and I don't know if the chat has brought it up. We got a lot of concerns. We talk about left guard and we talk about corner. So with what we've seen thus far, sample size, how do you feel about the pass rush? And I'm going to start with Toby, because I want to know how you feel about this pass rush as of today.
I think the pass rush has some potential. How much potential will remain to be seen after these first 5 weeks of the regular season?
Yeah.
We don't know. We watched a lot of DMP's defense. We watched a lot of Arthur Smith, but until we get into seeing how they're going to scheme these guys that they have, and let's be honest, guys, when you go back and look at this roster, it doesn't really look that promising. I'm sorry. And I got to see how they're going to be able to scheme these guys, man, because I don't know, man. I don't know. I think they got potential, man, but I don't know. Right now, my mind is saying, are they going to even still be able to get to the quarterback, even with all the scheming? That's just where I'm at right now.
Look,
sorry.
hey.
Yeah,
it's dead up real, because, we here on Pound for Pound, like, pride ourselves in being, like, the optimistic outlet, but the more I stare at it, the more I stare at this roster, the more I stare at like how Dean Pease likes to draw it up in the things that we have seen in the past. It is really hard to see where it's going to come from, right? It doesn't help when you don't get to see your players, except for maybe a snap or two. Right. I will say this though, before we get I definitely ain't trying to be like Debbie Downer in it or nothing. Ogundeji is probably my preseason MVP. He looks legit, okay? For a 4th or 5th round. My mind's blinking. 5th round.
Yeah,
Okay.
5th round.
For a 5th round pick, he looks like another, like 5th round steal, like Grady. Like the fact that he's got those long arms and can keep offensive tackles and guards and stuff off of him. You know, like, is he going to come out and give you 10 sacks? I doubt it, but I think he's going to be consistently pressuring.
So I'm gonna agree and disagree
right.
with both of you guys, because I agree with Okadeji, right? But I think that looking at, you know what? I'll be honest with you. Looking at this defense, looking at where we get pressure from, right? Because, you know, if you think pass rush, most people think outside linebacker, you know, Marlon Davidson, all of this type of stuff. But the thing about it is, you look at the year we went to the Super Bowl, it was a lot of potential, a lot of rookies, a lot of guys that had to come into place and play good football under a good system, right? And I think, you know, if we look at this pass rush, I would say it's actually it's probably one of the areas where I was the biggest detractor, probably 4 or 5 months ago. But it's actually where I've gotten more comfortable, because now, here's the thing. I think our linebacker core, to me, is defense. To me, when I look at linebackers, I look at pass rush more from an inside-outside perspective, and I've never done that before. I've always looked at it, will Dante Fowler get there? Will the other rusher get there, right? But now I look at it more so like this. Foy is the guy this year, right? Foy or Aluakon will become a household name in the NFL this year, just because he's smart enough. He's not a guy that's going to take backward steps, because he's a smart guy. So he knows what he's good at, what he's not good at, and he's going to focus on his strengths. So I look for Foy to be the centerpiece of the defense. I do look for Deion Jones to roam a lot more, to give him ability, because, again, we got to get our best athletes in positions to win. Same thing with Grady. That's why you just won't see Grady over the nose.
You're going to see Grady everywhere.
You know, everywhere, right?
Especially,
so my thing
not to cut you off, and I want to try, but especially with the showing that Jonathan Bullard has had in the preseason.
That's, to me, if I'm honest, if I'm not ready to throw in the towel, because to be honest with you, the left guard position can be filled, right? I mean, we can trust me, because to Toby's point, this weekend we'll see what's real, right? And then you get a David DeCastro, give him a couple days, he's up to speed, tell him to go here or there, we're good to go, or whoever, right? Because again, this back to the pass rush though. Don't want to derail and go back to the left guard position. Back to the pass rush though. I do think that our ability to get pressure in different ways, because I think you'll see, again, this is, to me, is right for Richie Grant. The one thing, one of my biggest gifts came true. Richie Grant is not a starter. Most people are like, well, why don't you want Richie Grant to be a starter? No, I want Richie Grant being that Swiss Army knife to try to erase him. I want Richie Grant, you don't know where he's going to come. I want Richie Grant coming on the blitz. I want Richie Grant guarding the flat. I want Richie Grant kind of being our Swiss Army knife and putting him in positions to be a ball hawk, because I think that those are going to be the situations that take us from, because if you look at it on paper, yeah, this roster doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, but essentially it's just about the same roster we had last year. The bigger question is, with the same roster we had last year, because you think, you know, you take Julio Jones away, you got a potential Julio Jones, this guy with all this potential in the future or whatever. There is some drop off, but if you look at it, it goes back to coaching. I think we fundamentally have the same team. Will this team, you know, be able to roster? And I would say at the pass rush level, that's one area where we improve, and that's a owed to Dean piece, and I look for it to continue to grow, which is, I would say, one of our strengths right now, because we got one of the best linebacking cores in the NFL. Right?
Yeah, I tend to agree there, and Tony Wright brought it up. He says, to piggyback off of what you just said, Mike, I believe that Michael Walker will become a household name. Like, you can see, you can see like the potential of Walker and where he's been all over the field in the preseason. And that's without scheming, you know. That's just with Dean Pease calling plays, right? And so I believe our linebacking core is going, and I've been saying it most of the offseason, that I feel like our linebacking core is the strength of this team. But the D-line, the rotational D-line guys are actually starting to kind of like be a little bit of salve on a wound there. Because like watching Ogundeji, watching, you know, Bullard, watching even Taquan Graham getting into the backfield. So yeah, I guess I'm a little more bullish on them than I was at the beginning, because the beginning of the offseason, it was Grady Jarrett and everybody else. And I feel like now it's Grady Jarrett and friends, and not Grady Jarrett and everybody else. Kind of, I feel like he's got a little bit better of a supporting cast maybe than what he's had, and we'll see how it plays out, obviously. But let's see, Toby, was there anything you wanting to add on to that?
I hope you guys are right, because you know what? Until they prove it in a game,
it's all
I got to see it. Yeah, on paper, it looks like our linebackers are going to be a strength, but we haven't seen Deion Jones take a snap. You don't still know exactly how they're going to use Deion Jones. We still don't know how they're going to use Dante Fowler, which is a DE, by the way.
Well, hold on now. If you go back to the website now, that clerical error has been fixed.
Okay, they fixed it.
He's
oh, good. Okay.
Yeah,
so
he's listed as a outside linebacker, and Cordell Patterson is listed as a running back.
Is that a running back? Okay, so they fixed all the clerical errors now.
I actually got like full on confirmation. Like Scott Blair and Tori McElhaney held a space chat on Twitter, and as I'm fortunate enough to jump into those during my work day because I work by myself, they were nice enough to let me ask a question, and that was the question that I asked, because that was right after the roster had been released, and I was like, all right, look, check it. Why y'all got Cordell listed as a wide receiver, and y'all got Dante listed as a defensive end? What's the deal there? That may have been like puzzling to some other people, but to people like us, those are important distinctions. Like how you view a player is an important distinction to how you're going to go about game planning. These coaches try to act like it isn't, but it really is.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me.
And so I'm glad.
But Scott Blair flat out said that was his fault.
See, because up until last night, they hadn't changed it. So they must have did it somewhere between last night and this morning, because he was still a DE when I looked at it. But that's beside the point now. That the true fact of the matter is we haven't seen the new number 6.
Oh, yeah, him.
Because he ain't 56
him
no
and
we hadn't seen him
and
play.
Walker. Walker gets to be number 3 now.
Right.
But I don't care what number players are. Look, just produce, right? You know what? You know what? What's crazy about it is this. I'm just gonna put it out there because I'm on this Dante Fowler milk carton. Is he on the milk carton? Is he not on the milk carton? I was taking him off of the milk carton because he looked like he was buying in number 56. Either he's keeping himself out of the milk carton because he realized when he was number 6, which he was at the University of Florida, he was number 6. Maybe he's trying to get his old mojo back. He's upset because he's had to take this well-documented pay cut. You know what I mean? Hopefully all of that translates to sacks. But I will say this. A Dante Fowler that feels like he has something to prove, I'll take that. You know why? Because Dante Fowler that came in here last year, he looked like a guy that was already fat. And I don't mean weight-wise. Like he was just fat off his contract. He was fat off the city. He was fat off of all of his past success. And he just thought that he'd be able to do a couple of moves and get to the quarterback. This is a year where our eyes are on you. So I'm not ready to jump on the Dante Fowler train yet. The number change, 56, number 6. But I will say this. He is a guy that I look to make his presence early against the Eagles, because everything that I've seen about this guy, the type of offseason that he's had, I'm almost in a position to root for this guy as a guy that could be a potential comeback player of the league, because he's had the ability in the right with the right coaching. He's shown the ability. Biggest thing is what can Dave
Hughes get out of this guy? That's the big question. Like, Smart Rye says, we have no clue what this team is going to do, and that's kind of the awesome and frustrating part at the same time. Is they have done a very, very good job from draft all the way out to keeping that stuff close to the chest. Keeping their plans close to the vest. And so, I'll give them kudos to that. Tony Wright asked me a question. It says, question for JR. It says, to me, I believe that the Falcons, Tampa, and Carolina's defense all improved a lot. The Aints front 7 is good, but their secondary is trash. My thoughts. Well, you got Jameis Winston fully locked down the job, as he probably should have. he was definitely the better quarterback throughout their process. Their secondary does have some questions, but they've got some good safeties. Marcus Williams, I believe, is a guy who I thought was, if we could have pried him away somehow from the Saints, that I would have been encouraged. But Marcus Lattimore seems to be having some issues, and they had another guy, Robinson or somebody, retire. So yeah, that's a them problem.
Yeah.
And buddy, I hope it is trash, straight up. Because look, if we can't win any other games in this division, I will at least want to beat them twice. So that's my thoughts there. Joe Primew says locker rooms bring the heat. Okay, all right. He had some other good statements. That's why. So he says the coaching staff got the W in preseason and got to ride the team into the season without season off the winning energy established. So just tested, but what I saw, confidence and control. I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to say there, bud. My apologies. So anyway, we'll keep on rocking. TB3 Entertainment says, would you guys sign the other Ridley brother? Riley Ridley got waived by the Bears. Cheap deal, vet minimum kind of thing. I'll take him. Yes,
I'm sorry to cut you off, JR. Yes, because when I saw that he got cut, I had to think that his brother had to be chiming for his little brother to play on the team with him, right? Again, if you're an SEC guy like myself, you know that he played at Georgia. He was really, really productive at Georgia. I think the knock on Riley Ridley was he came out a year too early. I think if he would have came back another year, he would have been in a much better situation. But I think he was a guy that kind of his name was a Ridley. His brother had already had all of this success.
Kind of leaning off that.
I don't really think that he took the time to become a good football player.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't think he took the time to become a technician similar to his brother. Now, will his brother help him? Will he help us get over the top? No, because I think at receiver we're set. Would you want your younger brother to play with you if you're big bro and, this is your city? Absolutely. But I don't.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So I was
going to move on, but if you got something to say, go ahead.
No, I do believe at some point, because like it was stated earlier yesterday, that Parker Hesse will make his way onto the roster because he's on the COVID reserve list, right? He hasn't been cut at all that we know of. And right now they're carrying their three main tight ends. I would have to think at some point they're going to add 4 to that list, and one of the receivers may end up getting cut. But I don't believe at this moment that Felipe Franks will be the guy getting put on the practice squad like everybody believes.
Okay.
No,
you're
go
good.
ahead, JR.
Chris Jameson says, I'm going to use Chris Jameson's question to segment into some weirdness. Chris Jameson says, do we really want our starting left tackle as our long snapper? Because right now, Jake Matthews is listed as the backup long snapper. Why are we even talking about long snappers? Well, that's because the Falcons decided to release Josh Harris today, our 10-year plus long snapper. Now, I honestly think this is a shuffle move, as in basically just a on paper type situation, because as I've been able to look into it a little bit more as we've been on air here, Josh Andrews hasn't actually been put on IR yet officially. Neither has there was somebody else that hadn't been Sheffield. Yeah, Sheffield. So technically speaking, those guys are still on the roster, and we did claim the guard from Cleveland.
Whatever his name.
Gossett. That's it. Yeah.
Gossett.
And so it could be that was just a technicality in a sense. You release Josh Harris and you tell Josh Harris, hey, look, we're releasing you, but it's only until these other things go through, and then we're going to bring you back, type deal. So don't go nowhere.
Right.
Don't clean out your locker. Don't move. Don't do nothing. You coming back. So don't even worry about it. I think before, maybe like you're talking about, before this weekend's out, it wouldn't surprise me if he was back on the roster. But I did want to address that because that happened right before we went live, and I was like, what are we even doing? Why are we releasing a long snapper? you know. So yeah, that was my thoughts there. Let's see. Fred Bus says Dean Pease hiding everything he's gonna unload on the Eagles. We're gonna hope. Kevin Spacey, what are you doing in our chat there, Kevin Spacey? Anyway, Kevin Spacey says Philly's offensive line was rated 32nd in the league statistically in 2020. They only added a rookie lineman in the second round. He predicts 5 sacks on our defense. All right, keep in mind, Spacey, that they were only rated that way because they had a lot of injuries. A lot of those guys who were injured are back. And so they actually have a pretty stout offensive line. And then you add in the fact the mobility of Jalen Hurts, and it's going to be interesting, which we're going to get into. I ain't trying to focus too much on Philly this week.
But we're definitely going to talk about the effect that could have on the pass rush of the Atlanta Falcons when we do our preview. And we get that
right. So we're going to TB3 says hypothetically Ryan gets hurt. Would you sign Cam? And I'm assuming he's talking about Cam Newton. No, I'm sorry. I don't. Even when Cam left Carolina, even that last year, I was like, he seems to have, lost whatever, Superman magic he really had. He wasn't that great of a passer to begin with, and I like his strength in his running, but I want my quarterback to be able to sling that ball when he has to. So that's my thoughts on Cam. I don't know if y'all feel different than I do.
No comment. I'm moving on from that chapter.
I think just coach speak, Terry Fontenot. We're just gonna focus on the guys.
Good job, coach. I appreciate that. Next question. I appreciate that. Oh man. Okay. Anyway, that is pretty good. Marcus Bell says, I'm super excited to see that 12 personnel with Pitts and Hurst. I've been floating an idea on these. I've been floating an idea on these space chats. If any of y'all had a chance to jump in with me there, that it'd be really interesting to see a lot of 22 personnel with both tight ends and Cordell Patterson and Mike Davis. Like the things that my somewhat offensive mind can see Arthur Smith doing out of that type of a personnel package is super interesting to me.
Your strength is not 11 personnel. I'm sorry. No. I can see us using that very minimal.
No, yeah, our you're still gonna have your 5 wides. But it's going to be 5 wides with tight ends and running backs is what your 5 wides are going to be made out of. Arthur Smith, at least his first year around, is going to be trying to exploit the middle of the field and create yards after catch and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. Right. But this team, to me, like Mike, you mentioned it earlier, this team is going to live or die on that 12 personnel with Hayden Hurst and Kyle Pitts. That's I think that's where it is. If that personnel grouping has the success we believe that it could have, then we could go a long ways into the regular season if this offensive line gets right. But anyway,
also something.
If they don't,
that's why honestly, if I didn't, so I'll tell you like this, straight up. If we didn't have the cap space right now, I would already probably get ready to throw in the towel. I would be very grim. But I do think that just still having Kyle Pitts, having Hayden Hurst, having that, like you said, that 12 personnel, right now, that's going to be, like I said, we have value adds right now that can beat teams. Because you look at the Tennessee Titans, we're not fundamentally that different. True enough, we don't have a Derrick Henry. But if you think about it, they use the tight ends. They had a freak out-eight receiver. Pretty good secondary receiver, Corey Davis, and again, they just kind of sliced and diced you with what looks you gave them, and they catered to mismatches. And last time I checked, we got missed, that seam, Matt Ryan connecting on with receivers in the seam. You remember, what, JR? I go back to this. You remember last year when Hayden Hurst scored that touchdown against the Cowboys, he was wide open. and he caught the ball up the sideline, and he was just wide open. And I just remember thinking, like, wow, even Austin Hooper didn't get open like that. Even Austin Hooper didn't just get wide open. Where here I am, right? I think you'll see a lot more of that, and that'll be how we continue to move the chains, right?
I think that's what I think that's what your explosive plays are going to be. It's going to be your yards after catches, not necessarily the bombs that you were seeing. Like you saw that stat where, Ridley had the most 20-plus yard catches of, whatever. Like, what did that equate for us? Nothing. Because when you got down into the red zone, you couldn't punch it in. And you've already seen Arthur Smith, even with the limited amount of scheming, which was none, you've already seen Arthur Smith, when he got down to the red zone, be able to punch it in. Like, in that Miami game, you had, Dante Foreman, like, meat grinder getting a touchdown. You had Caleb Huntley, with a 25-plus yard run touchdown. And had Tajay Sharp caught that daggone ball, you had a schemed open wide receiver touchdown on a slant. So, I mean, like there's plenty of I know we probably have sounded a lot more, downer than we normally do. But there is still a lot that can go right. I'm just trying to be, in a sense, like not resetting, but honing my expectations as we get closer to the start of the season, taking a real hard look,
Yeah. And again, for the people that feel grim right now, let's not forget 2 weeks ago, Calvin Ridley was cooking Xavier Howard down in Miami. I mean, listen, there are some Dolphins that know that this Falcons team is a really good team, right? And I'll be honest with you. What we're doing on this episode is just kind of recommunicating the pulse of what we saw the last month. Because we were all excited. We're all
right. That's it.
I mean, we got handed vanilla ice cream, and then, but this is the difference. We got handed vanilla ice cream the last 4 or 5 years, but guess what? The coach never called it vanilla ice cream. He said, this is just the greatest ice cream, whatever. He was sold it. We had a coach this time that said, listen, yes, what you saw was vanilla ice cream, but guess what? I designed it to be vanilla ice cream.
I meant it to be vanilla ice cream. I meant for you to eat this vanilla ice cream. That was the point.
Exactly. I think about it as like this. If there's a confidence amongst the players, right, then for us, as much as we pontificate, we kind of got to sit there and watch and let's see if it is magic, because, again, I don't know about you guys. The year we went to the Super Bowl, I didn't see a team in the preseason that was like, oh, this is going to be a Super Bowl team. It was just a team. All of the right things.
You didn't start to see the quote-unquote Super Bowl team emerge until like week 3. And even then, like if you remember correctly, even then, we were still having to have shootouts almost every single solitary game. And so, I'm still optimistic, but it's more of a cautiously optimistic, trying to like re-gauge where I think my, expectations lie. Initially I was like, oh, we have an easier schedule and yada, yada, yada. Maybe we can sneak into the playoffs this year. That's a possibility, but I think a lot of things have to go right for that to happen. So I feel more realistic is what I'm expecting to see is I want to see a team get better each week. I want to see a coaching staff grow in its confidence each week. And that's the kind of things that I'm looking for. Competent play. Let's see.
And listen, I love vanilla ice cream. But I'm going to tell you what, that vanilla ice cream has caused me to temper my expectations. Because I was on the same talking scale as you, JR. I felt like we had an easier schedule. We could sneak into it because 17 get in now in each conference instead of 6. But watching what I saw with that vanilla ice cream that you called it, Mike, that vanilla ice cream got my stomach hurting.
Look, I need some caramel. I need some fudge. I need some peanut. Look, what I'm trying to tell y'all, have y'all ever had a Snickers ice cream bar? Okay, a Snickers ice cream bar for everybody else is probably the most perfect ice cream treat. Okay, It's not too much, so you don't get sick on it. You know what I'm saying? You don't get your upset stomach.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got chocolate, it's got caramel, it's got fudge in there, it's got the peanuts in there. It's a perfect ice cream treat. So I'm hoping that as the season rolls on, we start to get towards that Snickers ice cream bar. You know what I'm saying?
Jay just gave us a standard. Is it vanilla ice cream or is it a Snickers ice cream? But you know, every week that's probably what we're gonna say. Did we get vanilla?
Did we get vanilla or did we get Snickers? But no, gentlemen, we've done it, man. We bumped up well over an hour. We had about an hour and 20 minutes. Chat, y'all were amazing. I'm gonna read a couple more just to make it. Sophia Blast says, I think we should have played the starters for the first quarter as well. I would have rather somebody gotten hurt in preseason so we could go on and replace them to get hurt in the first game. I think it was a trend that as I watched, because you know me, I'm a junkie for live football. So I was watching, all the preseason games, going back and, watching the condensed games on Game Film. The one thing I noticed is a lot of teams didn't play their starters. So it seems like it was a growing trend of, I'm good. I heard a lot of broadcasters echo the fact that these coaches were putting a lot more weight on these joint practices. And if that's the case, then that probably speaks to why we didn't see much of the starters, because our offense was cooking Miami on quite a bit down there by a lot of different reports. So I ain't going to worry just yet. Maybe by the third or fourth game, if it's looking like Fido's rear end, and y'all come in here with a bag over my head like Jimmy did last year. But
hey man, bring your bag.
But either way, we're gonna ride or die with them, and either way, that's still our team, right?
Sir. Yep.
So anyway, as always, folks, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I engage back. We all do. Shoot us your questions, your comments, your concerns. If you see me on the little space chat, hop in, man. I'll talk with you. But you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128, GRIMM1128. Mike Dub.
Follow your boy, man. Mike Dub, MIKE_DUB. Man, y'all been following a lot lately. I appreciate all of it, man. Like, you know what? Again, man, keep following. Right. I follow back. Toby D, take it on, baby.
Toby D, 1991. Now I'll probably start jumping in a little bit as the season gets rolling in those space chats and starting up some, But once that season gets cranky, man, so be looking for it on Twitter.
Jimmy Obama, he spells it crazy. But it's Jimmy Obama on Twitter. You can catch him up, and he's, like I said, he's got a new job, and we're gonna try to see if we can't figure out a way to get him back in here with us. But as always, Falcons fans, you can find us here on Wednesdays live streaming. Check the site for content, whether it's, scheme stuff, preseason stuff, however you want to do it. Y'all been amazing tonight. And as always, rise up.
Rise up.
Rise up.